The old man in the corner, the gym smelled of sweat, ego, and something sour Keanu couldn't quite place. It had been years since he stepped inside a dojo like this. Not a fancy Hollywood training set with cameras and assistants. No stunt doubles. No scripts. This was different. This was real. The walls were lined with posters of muscular champions. Fighters with blood on their knuckles and pride in their eyes. In the center, an octagon mat lay like a stage. A small crowd stood around it, laughing, stretching, tossing punches into the air. And in the far corner, just by the locker room door, stood a man nobody recognized, tall, quiet, wearing a worn black hoodie and jeans. It was Keanu. He didn't come to be recognized. He didn't come to be adored. He came because something inside him needed to breathe again. Something that hadn't stirred in years. Not since the accident, not since his brother passed. The front desk girl, young and full of sarcasm, didn't look up when he walked in. "You here for the free trial?" she asked, chewing gum like she hated it. Keanu smiled politely. "No, just here to watch." "Suit yourself, old man. Just don't get in the way, old man." He chuckled quietly and stepped back toward the bleachers, sitting down silently, eyes on the mat. He wasn't offended. He'd heard worse. Besides, she didn't know who he was. None of them did. Across the room, a young fighter named Trey noticed him. Trey was lean, arrogant, full of himself in a way only 21-year-olds with undefeated records could be. He elbowed his buddy Zach and pointed. "Look at that guy," he laughed. "What's he doing here? Auditions for the next Karate Kid." The others burst out laughing. Keanu didn't flinch. He just watched, observed, every movement, every mistake. Coach Ramirez, a retired Mao legend, stood near the edge of the mat, arms crossed. He glanced toward Keanu for a moment, his eyes narrowing. He knew that face. It had aged, sure. The beard was longer, the eyes softer, but he remembered it from a charity tournament years ago. Keanu had stepped in to spar for fun, and he'd left 3 black belts on the ground without throwing a single punch. But Ramirez said nothing, just nodded once, like a silent welcome, and kept watching. Meanwhile, Trey kept the show going. He danced around the mat, sparring with his partner, making a point to show off in front of Keanu. "This one's for you, Grandpa," he shouted, lunging forward with a flashy spinning kick that barely missed his opponent. More laughter. Keanu stood up. A hush fell over the room, not because they recognized him, but because of the way he moved, calm, centered, as if the world had gone silent in his mind. He walked slowly to Coach Ramirez and spoke in a low, respectful voice. "Do you mind if I spar?" Coach Ramirez raised an eyebrow. "You sure you want to do that?" Keanu nodded. "Just light. Just to feel the mat again." Trey clapped his hands. "Oh, this I gotta see. Get him some gloves, coach, and maybe a stretcher." A few of the gym members chuckled nervously. Some filmed quietly on their phones. Coach Ramirez handed Keanu a pair of gloves without another word. There was something in his eyes, respect maybe, or caution. Keanu stepped onto the mat, and in that moment, everything changed. He didn't bounce around like the others. He didn't flex, didn't grin. He simply bowed his head toward Trey, like a monk before a duel, respectful, still. Trey bounced on his toes, smirking, ready to nap. "Old-timer." Keanu's eyes met his. And then, the bell rang. The first 10 seconds were slow. Trey circled, threw a few lazy jabs. Keanu dodged without effort, like water bending around rocks. Then Trey lunged in, cocky, throwing a heavy right hook. Keanu ducked. And in a single motion, fluid, almost beautiful, he pivoted, dropped low, and swept Trey's legs from beneath him. The young fighter hit the mat hard. A gasp echoed through the room. Trey jumped back up, red-faced. Lucky shot. He charged again, this time faster, throwing everything he had. Keanu didn't move. He waited. And then, like time slowed, he stepped aside and tapped Trey's shoulder as he passed. The move looked simple, almost like nothing. But Trey collapsed mid-spin. The crowd went silent. Coach Ramirez stepped forward, whistle in mouth, but stopped. He had seen this before. Control, grace, complete mastery. Trey lay on the mat, stunned. Not hurt, just shocked. Keanu knelt beside him. "You're fast," he said kindly. But speed means nothing without stillness. Trey blinked, to stun. To speak. Keanu helped him up gently, bowed again, and stepped off the mat. The girl at the front desk stood frozen, mouth open. A man in the back whispered, "Wait, is that Keanu Reeves?" The room buzzed with sudden recognition. Phones came out. Coach Ramirez smiled faintly. "Told you not to judge the quiet ones." Keanu grabbed his jacket, gave a small wave, and started toward the exit. But before he could reach the door, Trey called out, voice shaking, "Wait, can you teach me?" Keanu paused, then turned. "Come find me tomorrow morning," he said softly, "before the sun rises. If you really want to learn, meet me at the hill behind the dojo." Trey nodded, his pride shattered, but something deeper awakened. And just like that, Keanu disappeared into the night. But something had changed in every person who watched that moment. Not because a movie star dropped a champion, but because kindness walked hand in hand with power. And they had never seen that before. Before the sun rises. The sky was still dark when Trey reached the hill behind the dojo. The city was quiet, like it hadn't woken up yet. Birds hadn't started singing. The wind was soft. There was only the sound of his breath and the doubts echoing in his head. He was sore from yesterday, not from the fall, but from the embarrassment, the kind that burns deep in your chest, the kind you can't shake off with a joke or a shrug. He kept thinking about the way Keanu had moved. Not fast, not flashy, just still, like he was listening to something bigger, like he was part of something calm. Trey looked around the hilltop. It was empty. His heart sank a little. Maybe it was a joke. Maybe Keanu said it just to be kind. Maybe he wasn't coming. But then, a soft voice broke the silence. "You're early." Trey turned. Keanu was standing behind him, holding 2 bottles of water and a rolled-up mat under one arm. He wasn't smiling, just watching, like he was reading something invisible on Trey's face. Trey straightened up. "I wasn't sure if you'd really show." Keanu handed him a bottle. "I never make offers I don't mean." They sat on the grass, no talking for a while, just silence. Keanu stared out at the horizon as the first traces of light began to bloom. "You know," Keanu said quietly, "the first time I fought wasn't in a ring. It was in a kitchen. My father was angry, again." Trey froze. Keanu didn't look at him. He just kept staring at the sky. "I was 10. He threw a plate at my mother. It missed, shattered on the wall. I stepped between them, didn't know what I was doing. I just moved." And he laughed, said, What are you gonna do, boy?" There was a long pause. "I didn't do anything. I just stood there, shaking." Trey looked down. "What happened?" "He walked away," Keanu whispered. "He never came back after that. I guess he saw something in my eyes. Or maybe he was just done." Trey didn't know what to say. "Fighting isn't about fists," Keanu continued. "It's about presence, stillness, protecting something bigger than yourself. Anyone can throw a punch, but not everyone can stand still when it matters." He stood up. "Come on." They started training. No gloves, no pads, no mats, just breath, movement, balance. Keanu showed him how to walk silently, how to listen to the sound of his feet, how to feel the wind before it changes, how to move from the hips, not the shoulders. Trey was confused at first. "This isn't fighting." "It is," Keanu said softly, "but not the kind you're used to." For the next hour, Trey did things that didn't look like fighting, standing still on one leg, walking backward with his eyes closed, holding a posture without moving for 10 minutes. His legs burned, his pride screamed, but Keanu didn't yell, didn't correct with insults, just quiet observations. "Don't fight your breath. You're leaning into the future. Stay here. Your fear is louder than your balance." By the end, Trey collapsed on the grass, sweating, panting, frustrated. "This is hard," he muttered. Keanu sat beside him. "That's why most people quit before they change." They sat in silence again. "Why did you come back to the dojo?" Trey asked finally. "You're rich, famous, you don't need this." Keanu was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "My brother used to train there." Trey blinked. "You had a brother?" Keanu nodded. "His name was Michael. He was younger, faster, smarter in a lot of ways. But he had demons." He paused. "Last year, He lost a fight, not on the mat, in his mind. Trey understood. He didn't need the details. Keanu continued. This place, it meant something to him. I came back because I couldn't let it fade. Because there's always someone standing on the edge, like he was, and sometimes, one moment can pull them back. Trey stared at him. You think I'm on the edge? Keanu didn't answer directly. He just said, you have fire, but no direction. Ego, but no anchor. You fight to be seen, not to serve. Trey looked away. Those words cut deep. Because they were true, Keanu stood. Meet me here again tomorrow, before the sun rises, and this time, bring nothing but silence. He walked away without waiting for a reply. Trey stayed there for a long time, watching the sky turn gold. Words spread fast back at the dojo. Videos of Keanu's spar had gone viral, millions of views. Comments like, is that really him? He moved like a ghost. The champ got humbled. But the real change happened inside the gym. People trained quieter now. They bowed more often. Even the front desk girl looked up when Keanu walked in the next time. Sorry for calling you old, she mumbled. Keanu just smiled and said, age is a privilege. She laughed nervously. In the following days, more members tried to train on the hill, but Keanu only allowed Trey. He said real growth needed space and quiet and surrender. Trey didn't understand everything yet, but he followed. And slowly, something began to change inside him. His strikes became gentler, his thoughts clearer. His anger started fading, replaced by focus. One afternoon, Coach Ramirez pulled him aside. What's going on with you? He asked. Trey smiled. I'm learning how to lose. The coach blinked. That's backwards. Trey shook his head. No, that's the beginning. One day, as they finished training, Trey asked Keanu, will you ever fight again? Like, in front of people? Keanu was quiet. I don't need to, he said finally. I'm not trying to prove anything. Trey nodded, but looked disappointed. Why? Keanu asked. Trey hesitated. Because I think they need to see it. Not for you. For them. Keanu looked at him for a long time. What if they mock me again then? You stay still, Trey said. Like you taught me. For the first time in days, Keanu laughed. We'll see, he said softly. But the wind had changed. And so had he. The challenge. The sun had barely broken through the clouds when Coach Ramirez entered the gym and found Trey in the back corner, eyes closed, balancing on one leg. His hands were still, his breathing slow. It was a strange sight, especially for a boy who once bounced around like a showman, needing everyone to watch him. The coach didn't interrupt. He watched for a moment, then turned as the door swung open. A man stepped in, tall, cocky, broad shoulders and diamond earrings. He wore a black tank top and gold shorts with a championship logo stitched across the leg. His name was Bruno Vega. He was the regional Ma champion, undefeated, ruthless, loved the spotlight. And he had come for one reason. Where's the actor? Bruno asked, his voice echoing through the gym. Everyone froze. Coach Ramirez stepped forward. What do you want, Bruno? Bruno smirked. I want to spar with your new sensei. I saw the video. Everyone's tagging me. People saying the champ would have gone down to. So I figured, why not? Let's test the myth. Trey opened his eyes. Coach Ramirez shook his head. He's not interested in proving anything. That's cute, Bruno sneered. But this ain't Hollywood. This is real. Just then, the door creaked again. Keanu stepped in, calm as ever, hoodie over his shoulders, carrying a small towel and water bottle. He saw the tension in the room right away, saw Bruno, saw the phone cameras already filming. He sighed quietly. Bruno stepped forward. There he is. John Wick himself. Keanu didn't react. What do you say, old man? Bruno taunted. Wanna give the crowd a show? Keanu looked around, at the phones, the staring eyes, the quiet murmurs. Then at Trey, who was watching him with a strange look. Not fear, not excitement, something deeper, something that said, you don't have to. Keanu looked at Bruno and said gently, I don't fight for applause. Bruno laughed, loudly. Of course you don't. Because you know you'll lose. The room buzzed. Keanu stayed silent, but Coach Ramirez stepped in. Enough, Bruno. If you came to fight, you're not welcome. Oh, I came to fight, Bruno said, turning to the room. But I guess this dojo is just for actors now. He looked back at Keanu, flashing a fake smile. You ever want to be real, old man? Come to my gym. We'll see if you can still breathe when it counts. And with that, Bruno left. The door slammed behind him. Silence lingered like dust in the air. Keanu walked to the mat, placed his towel down, and sat quietly. Trey approached, hesitant. You're really not gonna fight him? Keanu looked up. What would that prove? Trey shrugged. That he was wrong. Keanu's voice was soft. What someone says about you means nothing. How you carry yourself after they say it, that's everything. Trey didn't respond. He just sat beside him. But the video went viral. Someone from the gym had posted it. The clip of Bruno calling out Keanu. The smirks. The silence. The part where Keanu refused. People online took sides. Some mocked him. He backed down. Guess he only fights in movies. Bruno would destroy him. But others defended him. He has nothing to prove. That kind of calm is real strength. Even so, the noise was growing. Louder each day. Fans, fighters, influencers, even journalists, they wanted to see it. And then, Bruno made it worse. He posted a video on his page, standing shirtless in his gym, slamming a punching bag. Keanu Reeves is scared, he said into the camera. He knows what'll happen if he steps in this ring with me. He'll go down in one round. The difference between an actor and a real fighter, pain, and he ain't felt pain in years. He added one last line that stung deeper than the rest. If he doesn't show in 7 days, I'll make it official. Keanu Reeves is a coward. The next morning on the hill, Keanu was already waiting when Trey arrived. But this time, his face looked tired, not from training, but from something heavier. Trey dropped his bag and said, You saw the video. Keanu nodded. Trey took a breath. So what now? Keanu looked up at the sky. I made peace with who I am a long time ago. I don't need to fight to silence people. But what about all of us? Trey said. What about the ones watching? The ones who still don't believe that quiet strength matters. They need to see someone stand up. Someone different. Keanu was quiet. You told me real fighting is protecting something bigger than yourself, Trey said. Maybe this is that. Double quotes. Keanu turned to him. His eyes were not angry, not afraid. Just still. And in that stillness, a shift. That night, Keanu walked into the gym, the same gym where Bruno had trained. He didn't bring cameras, didn't bring fans. Only Coach Ramirez and Trey followed behind. Bruno was inside, surrounded by reporters and bright lights. It was already turning into an event. He grinned when he saw Keanu. Look who finally grew a spine. Keanu stood at the edge of the mat and spoke quietly. 1 round, no rules, just movement. Bruno laughed. Whatever makes you feel better. Keanu added, no crowd, no cameras, just you and me. Bruno frowned. You scared of being embarrassed? Keanu shook his head. No, I just believe not everything belongs to the world. Coach Ramirez stepped in. No coaches, no timers, no announcers. Both of you step in clean. The gym emptied. Everyone was told to wait outside. That only Keanu, Bruno, and the silence remained. They stood on the mat. Bruno bounced on his feet, grinning. Last chance to walk away, Hollywood. Keanu didn't move. The bell rang. Bruno rushed in, fast, throwing jabs, sharp, practiced, brutal. Keanu didn't counter. He deflected, moved, breathed. Bruno's punches missed by inches. The mat echoed beneath them. The sound of steps, breath, balance. Keanu was a ghost, untouched. Then Bruno growled, spinning for a power kick. Keanu ducked. His elbow met Bruno's chest light, but centered. Bruno fell to one knee. He stood back up, roaring, threw everything he had, and Keanu waited. At the perfect moment, he stepped in, not with force, not with rage, but with balance. A shoulder move, a twist. Bruno stumbled, fell. The room went silent again. Keanu stepped back. He didn't hit him. He didn't need to. Bruno sat on the mat, panting. humiliated not from bruises, but from the truth. Keanu walked to him, held out a hand. "You're strong," he said softly, "but the loudest fighter isn't always the one who wins." Bruno stared at him, confused, embarrassed, humbled. Then he took the hand. Outside, the crowd waited for chaos. They waited for blood, for drama. But when the doors opened, Keanu walked out, and Bruno followed behind him with his head low and silent. That night, no video was posted, no victory declared, only whispers. And somehow, those whispers were louder than any scream. The Warriors' silence. The world wanted answers. The gym had been closed. The cameras were off. The crowd outside never saw what happened between Keanu and Bruno. No footage leaked, no posts, no punches shown. Only silence. But silence, in today's world, travels fast. Rumors spread like wildfire. Keanu destroyed him. Bruno walked out humbled. They shook hands. Something changed. Keanu, as usual, said nothing. He returned to his quiet training, walking the same hill each morning. Trey kept showing up, more focused than ever. His footwork was improving, his balance steadier, and something softer was showing in him. Not weakness grace. But while the whispers grew, something else stirred in the shadows. Not everyone liked what Keanu stood for. Not everyone believed strength could be quiet. In a podcast that aired 3 days later, a former MMA champion named Colton Ricks, a man known for his arrogance and brutal knockouts, mocked the whole thing. "So now we're all supposed to bow down to some Hollywood monk who won't even throw a punch?" He laughed. "That ain't fighting, that's theater." He probably choreographed the whole thing with Bruno. The host joined in. "You think it was fake?" Colton grinned. "Bruno's a showman. Keanu's an actor. You do the math." Trey showed Keanu the clip the next morning. His hands were shaking. "You're not gonna let him say that about you, are you?" Keanu stared at the screen for a few seconds, then turned it off. "What someone says is their choice," he said calmly. "What you respond to is yours." Trey's voice cracked. "But this isn't fair. You keep showing the world something better, and they just throw it back at you." Keanu looked at him. "Maybe I'm not doing it for the world." That silence hung heavy. Then Trey whispered, "Who are you doing it for?" Keanu didn't answer right away. He just stood, picked up a rock from the ground, and placed it gently on a large stone at the center of the hill. "My brother," he finally said. Trey didn't ask more. He just watched as Keanu bowed his head quietly, eyes closed, hands folded like he was still listening to someone who wasn't there anymore. Later that week, Coach Ramirez pulled Keanu aside at the dojo. "I know you don't care what people think," he said softly, "but this is getting bigger." Keanu nodded. "I know. Colton's holding a charity match next week. Big names, fighters, reporters. It's all over the internet now. They're calling it Prove Yourself or Disappear." Keanu's voice was gentle. "And what do they want me to prove, Coach?" Ramirez looked down. "That stillness isn't weakness." A long pause. Then Keanu whispered, "Maybe they need to learn the hard way." The event was set in a huge arena. Packed crowd, flashing lights, reporters, screaming fans. Fighters warmed up backstage. The energy was raw and electric. Colton Ricks was the main event, the star of the night, and just when no one expected it, KeanuReeves walked through the side gate, carrying nothing but a gym bag and wearing a plain black hoodie. The room froze. Some fans screamed. Others jeered. Security tried to make way, but Keanu waved them off. He didn't want attention. He just walked calmly through the chaos like the noise didn't touch him. Colton saw him from across the room and laughed. "Well, look who found his courage," he said, throwing punches in the air. "You ready to dance, movie boy?" Keanu nodded. "I'm ready to listen." Colton scoffed. "I came to make noise." The organizers rushed to rearrange the lineup. The match was now the new main event. Keanu versus Colton. But Keanu made one request before stepping into the ring. No commentators, no lights, and no music. The arena fell silent. It was unheard of, but the organizers agreed. And just like that, two men stepped into the ring, one full of fury. The other full of stillness. Colton charged right from the start, fists flying, knees sharp. He had spent his whole career breaking down men who hesitated. But Keanu didn't hesitate. He didn't run either. He moved like air, like memory, like time was folding around him. He dodged, deflected. Waited. Colton grew angrier. He landed a punch, too, tried to grab him, throw him down. But Keanu didn't fall. He absorbed, he breathed, and then halfway through the round Colton spun for a finishing kick. But his foot hit nothing. Keanu had already moved. One step forward. A shift. His hand pressed lightly against Colton's chest, not hard, not aggressive, and Colton dropped, not because of pain, but because his own weight, his own momentum, had worked against him. The arena gasped. Colton lay there, wind knocked out of him, staring up at the lights. Keanu stood over him, offering no smile, no celebration, only a quiet hand. Colton slapped it away, but didn't get up. After the match, reporters crowded the stage. One shouted, "Why didn't you hit him?" Keanu looked into the camera and said softly, "Because I didn't need to." Another asked, "What do you want people to learn from this?" Keanu paused. Then spoke, "Power isn't in how loud you shout. It's in how quiet you can stay when the world screams at you." The room was silent. No one expected poetry. Especially not from a man who had just silenced a champion. That night, Trey sat beside Keanu on the hill. He looked up at him, eyes full of emotion. "I want to fight like you," he said quietly. Keanu smiled. "No, you want to live like you. Fight like someone who knows what matters." "What if I forget?" Trey asked. Keanu pointed to the large stone where he had placed the rock earlier. "Then come here, sit in silence, remember who you are." And they sat there, together. To shadows on a hill. Not speaking, just breathing and listening. When the student is ready, days turned into weeks. And something strange began to happen. The world didn't just talk about Keanu's silence anymore. They started practicing it. Online, fighters began posting quiet meditations before their matches. Gyms started offering classes in balance, breath, and focus, less about rage, more about restraint. They called it stillness training, and they traced it back to one man, Keanu Reeves. But while the world changed, Keanu stayed the same. Each morning, he returned to the hill behind the dojo, just as he had promised, just as he always did. Trey was always there waiting, no longer the boy who needed to win, no longer the fighter who fought to be seen. He was quieter now, more alert, more grounded, and more respectful than most grown men twice his age. Keanu saw it. He had seen it coming for weeks. But this morning felt different. They had finished their morning drills, breath, stance, silent footwork through the wet grass. And as the sun began to rise behind the trees, Keanu placed his water bottle down and said something he hadn't said before. "You're ready." Trey froze. Ready for what? Keanu smiled gently. "To stop being my student." The words hit harder than any punch. Trey blinked. What do you mean?" "You don't need me to guide you anymore," Keanu said calmly. "You've found your center, but I still have so much to learn," Trey said, voice cracking. "And you will." Keanu nodded. "But not from me, from life, from failure, from silence." Trey sat down suddenly, overwhelmed. "Why does this feel like goodbye?" Keanu sat beside him. "Because endings always feel like that, even when they're beginnings." That afternoon, something happened in the city. A group of bullies fighters from another gym showed up at Trey's dojo. They were mocking. Loud, arrogant. They called it a challenge. "We want your best guy," one of them shouted. "Unless he's hiding behind the old man again." Coach Ramirez stepped forward. "We don't respond to noise." But the others in the gym looked toward Trey, and slowly Trey stood up. He wasn't angry, wasn't excited. He just bowed and said, "I'll spar." The crowd parted. Trey stepped onto the mat. One of the challengers laughed. "You sure, pretty boy, we don't fight with poetry." Trey didn't respond. He bowed. And then he moved. The match didn't last long. Trey didn't throw many punches. He didn't need to. He moved with the rhythm of the wind, dodged, redirected. And at the right moment, when his opponent's fury peaked, Trey shifted his weight, turned, and gently tapped his shoulder. The boy fell flat. The room gasped. It was as if time had folded again, just like Keanu had done. But it wasn't mimicry. It was understanding. Trey offered his hand. The boy refused it. But Trey bowed anyway. Keanu wasn't there to see it. He was walking alone through an old district of the city, visiting a place most had forgotten. An abandoned community center. Inside, dust danced in beams of light from broken windows. In the back corner was an old wooden plaque. Michael Reeves Foundation, Youth Martial Arts Room. Keanu ran his fingers across the wood, brushing off dust with care. His brother's name, still there, still waiting. A woman stepped into the room quietly. "Mr. Reeves?" she asked. He turned. "We received your message," she said. "You want to reopen this place?" Keanu nodded. "Not for fame, not for photos, just for them." He pulled a folded piece of paper from his jacket. Inside was a simple design: a training hall, a quiet garden, a place for stillness. No belt systems, no trophies, only movement, breath, and balance. "I'll fund it," Keanu said softly, "and I'll teach, but just until they can teach each other." The woman nodded, eyes wet. "He would be proud of you." Keanu looked around the old hall. "I hope so." That night, Trey found Keanu on the hill again. "I sparred today," he said. "One of the boys who challenged us." Double quotes. Keanu didn't ask who won. He only asked, "Did you remember your breath?" Trey smiled. "Yes." Keanu placed a second rock on the large stone. "You carried the lesson, not just the technique." "You were right," Trey whispered. "Silence is power." Keanu nodded slowly, and for a while, they just sat again, the stars blinking into place above them, until Trey said something he'd never said before. "I'm not afraid of being forgotten anymore." Keanu turned to him. "Why not?" "Because it's not about who remembers your name," Trey said. "It's about what kind of silence you leave behind." Keanu's eyes softened. "Because now," the student was speaking like the teacher. News broke the next week. Keanu Reeves had purchased the old youth center. Renovations were underway. No press conference, no press. But word spread fast. They called it the Dojo of Silence, a place for those who wanted to learn not to fight others, but to understand themselves. People came from everywhere. And not just fighters. Single mothers, bullied kids, veterans, dancers, musicians, people who had never thrown a punch in their life. They all came because something in them had been shaken. Not by noise, but by stillness. And somewhere on the hill, Keanu Reeves sat alone once more. This time, not waiting. Just watching the wind and smiling. Echoes of stillness. Months passed, and the world kept changing quietly. The Dojo of Silence opened its doors on a rainy morning with no ribbon cutting, no celebrities, no red carpet, just a handwritten sign that said, "All are welcome, shoes off, leave ego outside." Keanu didn't make a speech. Instead, he held the door open for every person who walked in. Young, old, rich, poor, silent, and scarred. There were no belts, no loud shouts, no titles. Just people moving in stillness, listening to themselves, healing in the silence. Trey was there too, not as a student, but as a teacher. He wore no badge, no flashy G, just a plain black shirt and soft eyes that had once been full of fire. Now they held something gentler. Something stronger. Respect. One afternoon, a group of children gathered near the old training mat. They watched Trey balance on one foot, hands in front of him, breathing softly. One of them, no more than 7, whispered, "Is that kung fu?" Trey smiled. "No, it's called being still." Another child asked, "Will Keanu fight again?" Trey thought for a moment, then looked toward the garden outside, where Keanu was kneeling, planting a small tree near the fountain. "He already did," Trey said, "and he won." News outlets tried to cover the story. Articles called it Keanu's quiet revolution. They spoke of how one man had changed the way people thought about strength. But Keanu never gave interviews. His silence was the loudest answer. He had become a symbol not because he fought but because he refused to fight. In the way the world expected. He reminded people that not all power is loud, and not all battles are visible, One day, a woman arrived at the dojo. She was quiet, her hair graying, her hands shaking just slightly. She waited until everyone had left before she approached Keanu, who was sweeping the floor. "You don't remember me," she said. He looked up gently. "Should I? I was Michael's therapist. A long time ago." His breath caught. She continued, voice soft. "He used to talk about you every session. He said you were his piece." Keanu's throat tightened. He struggled. "Yes," she said, "but he never stopped loving you." And in his final weeks, he said one thing over and over. Keanu whispered, "What?" The woman placed her hand over his heart. He said, "Keanu will find the silence and teach it to the noise." A tear slipped down Keanu's face, not from sadness, but release, because now he knew Michael had seen it coming all along. On the hill that night, Keanu stood alone. The sun was setting in streaks of orange and purple. He placed a third stone on the old flat rock. One for Michael. One for the first moment of stillness, and one for the boy who had become a teacher. Trey joined him minutes later. Neither of them spoke. They didn't need to. They stood in silence, feeling the weight of everything unspoken. And then Trey said quietly, "I saw a man cry today after his first class." Keanu nodded. "I used to cry after mine too." Trey turned to him. "You think the world will really change?" Keanu didn't look away from the horizon. He said, "It already has." Later that week, an international martial arts tournament sent Keanu an official invitation. They wanted him to be guest of honor, to demonstrate, to speak. The email ended with, "The crowd would love to hear from you." Keanu replied with one sentence, "I think they already have." A year later, the dojo of silence had spread to 3 cities. People trained with breath, not fists. With presence, not pride. And everywhere the method reached, a little less shouting happened, a little less need to prove, a little more listening, a little more peace. Back at the hill, Trey had begun leading early morning sessions. Sometimes Keanu watched from a distance. Sometimes he didn't show up at all. Not because he stopped caring, but because he had finally done what Michael said he would. He taught the silence to the noise, and now the silence could speak for itself. On one particular morning, Trey found a note tucked beneath the third stone. He opened it with shaky fingers. It was from Keanu. Handwritten, calm, clear. "Dear Trey, you don't need me anymore, but the world still does. Show them not how to win, but how to walk away. Not how to shout, but how to listen. You've become the teacher I never knew I could be. When the wind is quiet, and the mat is still, remember me, in peace." Keanutree didn't cry. He just folded the note, placed it back beneath the rock. And sat. Breathing. Still. Calm, silent, and in that stillness, Keanu Reeves became more than a man. He became a movement.